You guys are getting close to lunch, so let me start by saying good morning. I'm sure you guys can do better. Come on, good morning. Good morning. That's much better. That's much better. Hey, really appreciate the organizers inviting me. It's an honor and pleasure to share with you. If you look at the title, what is the added value? What is the added value of a smart grid city? And I'm going to take a look only from the energy perspective, more on the electricity part of the energy perspective. Natalie and I did not collaborate on our presentation. I just saw it this morning, but if you look at my slides, you will see some of the key themes are very similar. And I'm going to have mainly 3 points in my presentation. There's many characteristics of smart grid or smart city and the citizens of smart city. I consider myself as a citizen. I am a citizen of the city in Charlotte, North Carolina. You guys don't see any ads. In North Carolina, we see presidential ads every 5 minutes. So you guys should be lucky that you're here. So from an expectation, from a citizen point of view, what is one of the key characteristics of a smart city? And I'm going to talk about connectivity as the key characteristics of the smart city. Now with that connectivity, what does that give to the citizen? And what is the opportunities, but also challenges for electric utilities or energy providers? So that's the second point. And the third point is, as we look into connectivity, I think Natalie mentioned, and you have sessions this afternoon, tomorrow, what is one of the key challenges that we will face in order to implement the vision of the smart city, and that's cybersecurity. So with those three as the key points, let me just start. I know some of you guys may not know EPRI. Many of you may have heard about Electric Power Research Institute. So who are we? So we conduct independent research, development, demonstration across the electricity spectrum. We are equal opportunity. We like all the sources, so all generation sources, the delivery, transmission, and distribution, and then the use of electricity, electric vehicles, energy efficiency. I have the honor and pleasure to work with more than 500 of our engineers and scientists in our labs, but more importantly, they work with academia. They work with national labs. I'm sure we have work going on at Berkeley and other universities. So we reach out to expertise outside of EPRI to bring to bear in the electricity industry technologies that can be applied in the real world. So another picture that you see over there is we work with hundreds of utilities. In the last year, we had more than 17,000 attendees. And these are not just presentation workshops. These are detailed discussion with electric utility personnel on how do you take a technology from an idea, from a concept, from a lab prototype to actual implementation in real life. So that's who we are, Electric Power Research Institute. So connectivity, I talk about connectivity. I want to share some results. This was a seminar we did in August. We call that our summer seminar. We invite our board of directors, primarily utility industry executives, and Public Utility Commission, and leaders of research in national labs and academia. And we asked them a question. And one of the questions was, if you look at the next 10 years, if you look at the next 15 years, what are some of the key technologies that you see from an electricity perspective that you think can have the most radical impact on the industry? And if you look at the two that they picked, you wouldn't have thought about those two. You would have thought carbon capture and storage. You would have thought energy storage. You would have thought wind, photovoltaic. The two they picked was connectivity. How transformational changes we are seeing in all of us in how we use and access information. 5 years ago, how many smartphones were there in the US? Today, the smartphone shipment is around 500 million. 5 years ago, how many of you were using tablet platforms? How many of you guys are using now? So the way we interact, the way we access with information, the way we use the information have changed radically in 5 years. We're not talking about in our industry. Got to figure out how old we are, 200 years old. I look back at Edison, look back at Westinghouse. So if you look at those two areas and you look, connectivity, that's the hallmark of what we will be in the future. And that's what a smart city will enable us to do. So if we take this trend of connectivity and say we are going to be more interconnected, we will be accessing information in different way, we will be interacting with information in different way. What does that do from an energy perspective? So what is the energy value? What is the value? Okay, great, I got a Facebook page that I can post the pictures that I was at Berkeley. What does that do to electricity? So what does that do to electricity? I'm going to look at, I got 4 quadrants. I want to go through if you're looking at it, bottom right. Anybody know what that symbol is? That's Nest. Okay, you guys know that. And I don't have shares of that company. I'm not promoting Nest. The only way I'm saying that is I am a user of it. I installed it in my new house in Charlotte a couple of months ago. And I tell you what's the beauty of that. And it's not just that, because I'm going to take to the next step. Yes, it is adaptive. Yes, it is smart. Yes, it does all those things. But the best thing it does is with one click. If I'm going out, if my family is going out for 2 hours, if you're going out of home, as soon as we get to the car, with one click, I change the setting. Many of you may have 2 units. You know, California, you guys don't have air conditioning. Go to Southeast and you will find out what air conditioning means. So you're in the downstairs watching TV till 9, 10 p.m. Then you go upstairs to sleep. Did you remember to change the thermostat down and downstairs? No, you didn't. All it takes is one click. So I'm already seeing in 2 months, it's impacting my energy bill. Forget about all the auto adaptation and all that thing. But I had to spend $230 for each thermostat. I don't know, $200, $200, $400. I had to pay $100 to an electrician. I had $500 invested. Now I'm a geek. And by the way, at EPRI, we use that as a badge of honor. We are geeks. But we spent $500. Go and look. If you want to know where consumers are heading, where technology is heading, go to Las Vegas. Go to the annual convention that the electronics industry has, and what are the consumer electronics things that are coming down the pike. That's where you will see technology. So if you go there, you will see Panasonic, you will see Toshiba, you will see Trane, you will see traditional companies who are in the appliance business. They're making air conditioner, they're making heat pumps. They're going to embed wireless connectivity in their devices. It's going to happen in 2 years. You don't have to wait 5 years. You can download that app free from the web. So for the thing that I just spent $500, if I waited 2.5 years, it would have been entirely free for me. And people always say, well, Arshad, you know, are you going to really be changing your water heater temperature with an app? I said, I fiddle with this thing for no reason. In this case, I actually save money. If I can change, your water bill, your water heating bill, if you were able to, with one click, change the temperature setting of the water heater bill, so you don't need to have a hot water 24 hours when you're only using it when you need, it will impact your energy bill. In the US, we spend $140 a month. That is the average electricity bill. And if you earn $250,000, maybe that's not a lot of money. If you look at the average income of US, and if you look at the average $140 that you spend, if you can move that $140 to $120, maybe not for this audience, but for the average people in US, it will make a difference. And that's what a smart city will have to do for the average audience. So if you look at connectivity and how energy management will evolve, I will postulate it will be free. But one thing, there's nothing free. The appliance manufacturers, the Toshibas, the Panasonics of the world will find that having a built-in wireless connectivity and having an app that's free actually enhances the value of their product. So it's not free, it's just their way to sell their product. Somebody will say, well, Arshad, you know, these are micro things. You really think people will do this? I said, I don't know about us, but if I look at my next generation, when you guys in Palo Alto, you guys in California, when Apple 10 years ago said they'll have a business model based on 99-cent transactions, many of you laughed. It cost more to do the housekeeping on a 99-cent transaction. iTunes, I haven't checked, I think is a $10, $20 billion business right now on 99-cent transactions. Individual people at micro level making decisions can make an impact. And that impact can also happen in the energy sector. I'll just give you one more example. I know we are limited on time, so I'm not going to give you on all 4, but would be happy to discuss that with you. Because I see we will come across as tone deaf even in this summit if you're talking about a smart city and if you're not talking about resiliency. There are more than 1 million people out of power in Northeast. For the 5th day, they may be out of power for another week. Temperature is expected tonight and tomorrow night to go down to sub 25 degrees. That suffering is for real in one of the most advanced cities in one of the most advanced countries in the world. And soon you will think that we will have to bring in technologies. There is heroism going on today from electric utility crew workers. There are 60,000 electric utility folks who are working 17 hours a day, risking their life to bring back power. But because it's geographically dispersed, you cannot even take a truck because the trees are all over the place. It will take time. So now you got to look at what will smart city do for that not to happen. Now you may think ain't going to happen, and I was talking with somebody from our EDF colleagues, By the way, EDF, great collaboration with EDF. I cannot say much about how the spirit that EDF has, the one key understanding that technology is, at the end of the day, will provide the lowest cost solution to the consumers. And when your consumers are happy, your shareholders are happy as well. So I think that from that perspective, well, EDF will say it will never happen because we don't have storms. And our grid is built really hard. You got to think back. You know, Japanese people didn't think Fukushima would happen. It happened. You know, 5 days ago, the storm surge was 14 feet. The substations were designed for 12 feet. You may say, let's harden the infrastructure. Let's spend $5 billion and put the substations up on 15 feet. How do you know 2 years from now the storm surge will not be 16 feet? So you cannot ever think that a large, complex infrastructure, I can harden my way out, and this thing will never happen. When was the last time you guys had a big earthquake? Remember when? And I'm not, touch wood, I'm going to touch wood. Doesn't mean anything going to happen again. It will. It may not impact city of Fresno. It may not impact another city. But it will have an impact on the energy infrastructure. So you may be out of power even though the earthquake did not impact you. How many of you, this is California, I can ask the question, hopefully get some hands go up because I typically don't get any hands go up. How many of you guys have rooftop solar? Don't say none. At least one, two. I'm glad. I mean, at least one or two. How many rooftop solars are in California? Anybody want to venture? Give me a number. 300,000? That's a 300,000. So let's say you got rooftop solar, 300,000 at the city of Fresno. And let's say you had a natural or a man-made disaster, cybersecurity, that impacted your power infrastructure. You don't have power. You got a 2 kilowatt solar cell up your solar panel up your roof. Do you think you're going to get 1 watt of electricity if the power is out for 5 days? Let's just say power is out in your house for 5 days, for whatever reason, widespread infrastructure. And you got a solar panel up your roof. Do you think you'll get anything even when the sun is shining? No, you'll get nothing. Think about it. Think about it. We're all engineers, Berkeley, great institute, and we're working. I mean, it's not, I'm not pointing at you, I'm looking at me. You know, when you point a finger at somebody, the other finger is pointing at you. We as engineers, we as technologists, don't think about resiliency. Resiliency is not just making a system so hard that it can never be penetrated. Resiliency is also ability to cope, assuming that we will be breached if it's a cybersecurity, assuming that a natural disaster will impact us. Never happened one in 100 years. That doesn't mean it can't happen tomorrow. 100 years in the lifetime of Earth, 4.3 million years, is 30 days of your life. So just because it didn't happen in the 30 days of your life doesn't matter, doesn't mean it will not going to happen in the next 40 years that you're going to live. So we got to bring in technologies in the smart city that has to make us more resilient. We have to design PV systems. So it is safe, it will not generate power back to the grid when the grid is out, but it can provide opportunity power to your home. So if you look at it from a consumer point of view, from a citizen point of view, this is what a smart city will have to do for me. Will allow me to use energy, will allow me to interact, manage energy cheaply. I don't want to pay $500 for thermostats. And it has to make the grid more resilient. What is the value for the electric utilities? And when I use electric utilities, it's not just the electric utilities, EDFs of the world. It's companies that are aggregating demand response. It's companies in the electricity sector. So the great opportunity on connectivity is you take these small nodes of individual behavior, individual loads, and you try to integrate them, aggregate them. You bring it as part of your grid management. So you're not managing the grid just by ramping up and down coal units or nuclear units or wind. Basically, you cannot ramp up and down wind, by the way. But your grid management is not just based on ramping up and down large power generation. But you're taking aggregation of small customer behavior and small load through communication control, and you're doing that. So that's the value that you have from a utility perspective. Gave you example of grid resiliency, gave you example of how we as customers may be able to survive an outage, but there are opportunities of connectivity from the utility side. On the left side picture, you see an UAV. So we are using drones now. You guys heard about drones now. Think about 100,000 people out of power, widespread damage. Wouldn't it be great if the utility crews driving their truck, they all of a sudden see that the road is blocked? They take a small drone, not $1 million drone, a $20,000, not a toy helicopter, but kind of like a toy helicopter, with video camera in it. And they fly by 5 hours. They fly in a 5-mile radius, get the picture, integrated with the geographical information system, GIS, that the utilities have. You can do damage assessment maybe 1/10 of the time by having to do it manually. We're working on it. These are all things that are not just cute pictures. The industry is working on it, but it's not just technology. One of the challenges you have, FAA has no rules right now on use of drone for civilian use. They're looking at it. I heard somebody could confirm at EDF. You actually have, now in France, there is a rule now that allows drones to be used for transmission line inspection. And there are companies who are using that. So you're not doing transmission line inspection by just flying by with manned helicopter or through the truck. Go to my last point. So the opportunities are there, challenges. Every opportunity has a challenge behind that. You have all the sensors. You have my thermostat. You have your thermostat. Thousands and thousands of sensors. It's going to get thousands and thousands of gigabytes of data. First challenge is how to manage the data from an energy perspective. I think that's a challenge easily overcome. The concept is in 2030, we will have 2.5 DVDs per person per year. That's the amount of data that the electricity industry will generate. So think about it, 2.5 DVDs per person per year. How many DVDs per person per year we generate through our internet outside the electricity industry? Today, forget about 2030, 500. 500 DVDs per person per year is the amount of data that we're generating today. So if Google and others have figured out how to do the data analytics, we as electricity industry will figure out how to do the data analytics to mine the data for useful information. But the challenge that we have is not data analytics. The challenge we have is, anybody know what that sign is? What the picture is? Anonymous. Things that happened in 2003, just 7, 8 years ago. A group got formed, a loosely knit group, no head, no tail, but brilliant experts worldwide. They're not organized crime like we had on credit card transaction. They have other agendas. So all of a sudden, you have now powerful brain that are working on for whatever that motivates them. When you have this many sensors, my thermostat is now a point of entry for a cyber breach in my house. So you'll have millions and billions of points where you could be breached. So the threat went up. Another thing happened in 2011, just last year. Stuxnet. Anybody heard about Stuxnet? So you had centrifuge operation that was impacted by introducing a virus on a Siemens PLC. But why is that important? It's important now. Go to the website, go to Northrop Grumman, or go to any defense agency. They're hiring cybersecurity people in spades, not just to protect their infrastructure or to protect the US government infrastructure or your government's infrastructure, but use cybersecurity as a weapon. So when you have cybersecurity research going on in full force, you will have nations now innovate, not just individual anonymous groups. You'll have nations innovating in the type of technologies that will allow you to breach. And then just 2 months ago, what's the biggest company in the world? You guys in California, you should be able to say that. Apple. Actually, no. Stock value. This is not a publicly traded company. The largest company in the world is Saudi Aramco. Bigger than Apple, bigger than Google, but they're not publicly traded. So just 2 months ago, one of their employees came in, turned the computer on, the computer was off, black screen. He called IT. The second guy came in, computer was off. 40,000 desktops. Think about your company, think about your organization, your employees come in EDF, 40,000 people comes in, it's a dark black screen. These examples are not to scare you, even though you have gone to many cyber conferences and people use these examples to scare you. This is not to scare you, but this is for you to understand you can never build a system that you can guarantee you will not be breached. It will be breached. You now have to look into how can you recover and how can you survive the time it takes for you to recover. You cannot spend enough money. You can gold plate your system with encryption, with password, with all kind of cool gadgets and technologies. You still will be breached, because you don't know where the technology is coming tomorrow. So from a smart city perspective, we've got to make sure that we take into account that we will be breached. We have to now do failure scenario analysis that if we are breached, how does that impact the smart city operation? What do we need to do to isolate and recover? And more importantly, end up with what are we going to do? During the time we are recovering, how do we survive? How do we operate? So the last slide I have, and then they answered the first question I had. So what is the value of doing all this? And to me, the value of all this is what our mission is at EPRI, and I think mission is for any of you working in the energy industry. Electricity has to be affordable, reliable, and clean. Not either one of them. Now, you can't have affordable, you can't have a cleanest electricity that is not affordable and that is not reliable. And by building the smart city, by taking into advantage of connectivity and technologies, I think we'd be able to keep this balance and continue to make electricity more affordable, more reliable, and more clean. Thank you.